I'm calling this regular meeting of the Rappahannock County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Jennifer Matthews.
I'm here.
Alex Sharp, I'm here. David Kahn.
I am here.
Ron Malloway, and Chris Bird. Everybody's here.
Everybody's here.
Yes.
Where's the recorder?
Aren't you the recorder today? Do we have one? Do I need to repeat everything?
Yeah.
Just in
You need
case.
it again?
Here's this, is it in here?
Copy it off. I'll totally lose track of what's going on.
Are you lost?
Some of the time. Push through them. I move that the annual report be approved, is that right?
That's okay, the first item is to adopt the or review and adopt the meeting agenda. Are there any modifications or changes?
No.
No? Oh, wait, I have the wrong one.
That's the detailed one. See the details on
I see that, very nice.
it? Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
The agenda as circulated.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that a roll call vote? No. Okay. Then the next item is public hearing.
No, it's minutes.
It's minutes.
I thought we just did them.
We did
No, we just
agenda.
did.
You did that. We were still on the agenda.
All right, cut them
Okay,
off.
the next item is the minutes. Well, Jennifer, you messed everything.
You need there.
Sorry.
I moved that, did the secretary make the corrections that I
As amended,
suggested?
because see, we didn't really amend it. That's what confused me.
I see. I did make the changes that you suggested.
Okay.
I had to put that I didn't vote on it. I was copying it and pasting it from somewhere, and I put it in the wrong spot.
Did you get the right meeting?
I did. So that's fixed.
Okay.
Then I moved that the minutes be approved as of the last draft that was circulated.
Is there a second to it?
Second.
Chris, a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearings, we're going to, it says none. Okay. Old business, none. It's not on.
Is it, well, do we have a report on the comprehensive plan?
Sure, I'll give a little report on that. The Planning Commission seems like it's had 2 meetings already. The
You
first,
get paid for this too?
No.
yeah, but less than this. As I once said to Dave Fannin of Fannin Oil, they were giving him a hard time and trying to throw him off. I said, Dave, I'll write a letter to the paper and say you can stay in because you need the money. Anyway, I think we get paid. Ask Michelle.
There's a check every so often.
Anyway, we had a work session on about the, let's say the 12th or 11th, and second Friday, and went over some more changes that were really the result of that Berkeley group letter, and we got through about half of the proposed changes, and time was up. So we're going to have another work session on the 29th, and then at our regular meeting, we just did some reviews and so forth. We didn't really talk about the comp plan at the regular meeting because we didn't have time. It was a pretty long meeting. So, as you may be aware, I got elected chairman of the Planning Commission and put out a work plan for the first 6 months, which calls for 2 additional work sessions every month in addition to the regular meeting.
2 additional ones?
Yeah.
Each one? Wow.
Well, I proposed it. It hasn't been adopted yet.
Well, that's great.
So, but I put out sort of a schedule of what we're going to do, and all of those with a view toward bringing the comp plan to a public hearing in March, I believe, March or April, and then doing those May amendments with a few little additions or tweaks, including the thing about tourist homes.
So we get to them in May?
Actually, yeah, the May amendments, I think, are sort of tentatively on the docket for May.
That's great.
2 years later.
See, they
No,
were.
3 years at this point,
I thought
I
it was
think.
2015.
I proposed them in March, actually, of 15. so-
Right, because we had the big sheet.
Oh, they weren't advertised till.
They never have been advertised yet. They just, they work their way through them at the end of meetings for how long? Well, till the following May, for 14 months. And then they sort of tabled them till they finished the comp plan. And that was in the spring of 17,
I would try to finish.
2017.
I would try to finish them in May.
Yeah, well, that's on the drawing board, so, there are a few other little things, and in the meantime, if you are aware, I mean, we've come across a few things I know on special use permits, little things that I'm gonna suggest, and I think the thing about I think that's in the May amendments, about some changes to the family apartment and efficiency apartment. So that's one thing that's come up. There's a couple other places that I think aren't in there. It's just really technical amendments where they said certain uses are up to a certain number, like I think there's a healthcare facility that's up to 20 beds, or less than 20 beds and over 20 beds.
But not 20.
But not exactly 20. And I think schools are like that as well, depending on the number of students. And I just...
So you have to have 21 or 19?
Yeah, or you're out. So, or you did, I don't know. Anyway, so little things like that. So if you all are aware of anything,
Well, one of the things that, and I don't know if that goes in the code, but that, about the safety things for the tourist home bed and
right,
breakfast.
the things that we've been doing, I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea, and I think...
I think that needs, and Ron can help you with that. And of course, it's going to be up, should have language in that, whatever, as the codes change
Mhm.
year to year, statewide, that it needs to upgrade. And I think it needs to be greater clarity about the right-of-way, especially if
Yeah,
it's a
that's it.
private road to have, because we've been in this conundrum with, Harmony Manor up here.
But you should
That's in there,
also,
that says now for private roads, it has to have, it really doesn't matter what, now it says about the right-of-way, which
you're
is,
talking about the
the
roadway.
roadway itself is gonna have to meet the standard in the subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
It has to be crowned, and it has to be a certain width, and it has to have...
And
shoulders.
if it's a shared road,
Mhm.
That's
is there,
what he's talking about.
was there gonna be,
That's
Well,
what
it
you're
has to
talking
be,
about.
right, it has to be, the road has to be built to subdivision standards, so I think 12 feet is, so the two cars can pass theoretically. And, well, it also has to have a shoulder, I think, of a couple of feet, but it's in the subdivision ordinance, and it just incorporates that. And then there's no, it basically, I think, says that if it's on a public road, because we've had some of those, that is not paved and has a right-of-way of or a paved surface of less than 20 feet, it's not allowed, but it can be waived by the BZA when it's reviewed. So, yeah, all that stuff is in there.
One thing that I think is kind of a loophole, I don't know if it's addressed, is the efficiency apartment.
Yeah, what
It can be 25% of the main house size.
Right.
There's no upper limit. So you could have a 20,000 foot house and then a 5,000 foot efficiency apartment, right? I mean, that is the way it's written.
I couldn't, but someone...
Well, no, but I'm saying.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's,
But I mean, that's one I've wondered
those are
about.
things
A
that.
lot of, when that was written, people just like all this Turnstone stuff and some other things. There's nothing in there about solar farms, that's also on the agenda.
Okay, but
To
I'm
be
just
fixed. I
saying,
mean,
but
this is one of those
that's,
things, I don't think anybody really thought anybody would abuse it.
because the limit is 600 feet, except it's also 25% of the main house size. So while 600 feet seems pretty small, 5,000 feet might be pretty big.
Right.
Anyway,
Bigger
that's,
than mine. Anyway, another thing is that sign thing, the sign ordinance in total is gonna be probably rewritten. because of the court cases, but one of the things that's in there at the very tail end is that unless the BZA or the Board of Supervisors on a permit restricts the size of the sign, they automatically get the maximum size.
So you're gonna change the light.
I think that was a typo. I think it should have said they don't get any, well, anyway, we're gonna fix that. I don't know how it will come out, but it shouldn't say that. So,
I would like to throw in, which, you know, it's just my opinion or whatever, but Mr. Frazier threw out the thing about increasing the size of the planning commission because of the workload, which has to do with, for the most part at this point in time, the fact that we're so far behind on the ordinance, you know, redoing the ordinances and whatever, that, I mean, I as a planning commissioner would be more than happy, or let's say BZA member, would be more than happy on a subcommittee basis
Is it
or
on ad
whatever
hoc?
to assist in that, you know, operation. So I mean, the people would be available, but it would not necessitate increasing the size of the planning commission, which.
I'm looking into that, and we're gonna talk about having committees and stuff like that.
Well, when we did the planning, comprehensive plan previously, the Hal and Bev Hunter were kind of ad hoc because they had all this technology to do the mappings. And so there were several other small ad hoc committees that were working in, that were feeding in the information to McCarthy and myself and others. So I think that's fine, but I don't think that the planning commission per se should be increased. It's just a matter of people focusing and doing
As
it.
Chris knows, to set up these work sessions, it's like, you have 7 different people, and it's hard enough already to get them all to agree on the date, and by adding 3 more, it's just gonna make it probably about 5.
Yeah, I think
That's what they were talking about.
I think more along the lines of if the planning commission formulates
Yeah, right, that's what I'm thinking about
subcommittees,
too.
which, you know, 3 people or whatever can work on those things and be way more effective than 7 people, because you actually get something done.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
That was just my thoughts on it.
I will touch base with you when we get to that point.
Update on Harmony Manor.
Do we have an update on the?
Yeah, by the way, congratulations.
On Harmony Manor?
Do we
Yeah,
have,
well, on your
do we know
ascension.
any update on the Harmony?
I've got it here. The judge entered an order, I think January the 2nd or something like that, directing us to turn over the record. So I've got that here. Michelle has gotten it all together, and I'll probably be filing that tomorrow. They didn't have a date on it.
There's not a hearing.
There's not a date. No, there's no hearing dates on anything. And as for reappointments, the silence is deafening.
But so there's an appeal not only on the
There's
first?
2 appeals. There's an appeal on the original revocation, and then there's another appeal they filed on the,
On the early revocation.
on advancing the date of it, which in about 3 days or however long, in another week, it's gonna be kind of.
But
a
it seems
moot
like
point.
that would be moot, so wouldn't they drop it?
I don't know.
It's by the
All the
time.
judges are up in these.
We're out, and basically, we're out of the process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we turn our
Well,
materials
no,
over.
I understand that, but it's interesting. just
Oh,
to see.
absolutely. It's very interesting. And the fact that we're up to 3 FOIA requests now on.
And they're
on
continuing
information
to
for
operate.
that.
I don't know. Are they continuing to operate?
Who knows? Okay. Okay, so the next item, annual budget request to the Board of Supervisors, and it sounds like we should get that in by Monday, or,
Soon.
It's the 27th of June,
I didn't.
I looked
requested date.
at the whole budget, and
Oh,
then
you have the actuals?
I've got, I've got the present, you know, expenditures
Today?
on the present budget, yeah, today, which is not much, but it is what it is. And I do have some questions, and I was with Debbie Nick today, and we couldn't find the answers to them. So, oh yeah, that was for Michelle, excuse me, I forgot to.
So the question I had is, who's covering the office supplies? Because before, it seems to me it was a higher number. And is that subsumed into somebody else's budget?
We've got 150 in here, that seems adequate.
And we've spent
Is
150.
150 in there?
Well, now on office supplies, basically, we looked today at the checks, and it was for office supplies, but have you ordered any, so have you ordered any office supplies on the
Put my
BCA?
trip, my return trip from Costa Rica on office.
And it's not, I mean, we're not talking about major amounts of money, it's $133, so
Probably paper.
for paper or whatever. Okay,
How did you figure that out? We spent $137 on paper.
I mean, like a
So did
case.
they eliminate the duties?
Yeah, they
And,
told us.
yeah, that's- I can explain
It's not- it's not-
The expenses on here I
it's
can explain for what they, they are at this point or whatever, because we looked at them today, is that the $17.50 is basically all advertising to Rappahannock News. The entire amount. The $133 is for office supplies, then it goes to Staples or whatever, it's off the credit card. And then the $596.43,
That's for you.
that's for me, for the
Well, that,
training.
And
that's
that-
what I spoke with the chair about, that I believe that that's gonna need to be increased, because if we have one or two, members that are coming on board, they're gonna need to have, go to the courses, and then if some rotate, some of the members of the board rotate off in the fall or beginning of next year, then again, they're gonna need to be,
Where was the course?
Yeah, but I mean,
The course.
quite honestly,
Where is it?
yeah, for next
Where-
year's budget,
Where is it, the class?
it varies.
Where was yours?
Mine was in Richmond, but they
They've
hold
had
in
in Charlottesville,
Harrisburg,
they've
they
been
hold
in-
in Roanoke.
Did you spend?
they've had in
And
Lynchburg.
I spent, actually, for the first session, I spent 2 nights because we were unfamiliar with what the process was or whatever, and that can be easily cut down to 1 night.
But that's part of this expense.
And, yeah, that's part of, and it's listed under travel, and does that include, because when I checked with Debbie today, Michelle, that 596, I believe was all under my name, but did that include, was there a registration fee on the course,
There was.
which was probably how much?
75 or something, or 100?
No, it's usually 100 or something like that, 125.
Why did they charge us?
Yeah, that might,
Was that
yeah, that
part
might
of
be
it?
about.
So would that be under dues?
No, also it says travel here on the budget,
But on the
budget itself, it's travel and training.
training, because it had been 1,200, then it came down to 750, and this past
Right.
year went to 500, and then, I think it needs to be more than
Yeah,
500.
realistically, it needs to
It
be
needs to be
more.
more than 500,
Right.
and had there been a dues and association membership, that money, which we don't belong to anything, other than the LEU, the one that used to be the Piedmont one here, that money from that could have gone into the travel and training coffers.
Okay, and the question that came up today, that I went down to Debbie's to see if we could figure it out, and we couldn't find it anywhere, is where did the money, we paid for a transcription on that audio tape.
We did?
Where did that money come from? Because we couldn't find it. Because one would think that it would
Was
have
that
come
the one
out
from
of
that
our,
from that
it should
July?
have come out of our budget.
From Harmony Manor, the old,
From back in
for the-
2012.
The October
13.
23rd meeting that
Would that
was-
be under legal?
no, I mean, it's not in our budget
No.
anywhere. That's,
Why am I
it's not in our
How
expenditures
about
at this
FOIA?
point.
Would it be? FOIA?
No, but I'm just saying, couldn't
no, that's not why we did it. We did it because we didn't have any minutes for the meeting. We only, the minutes said.
Oh, for the
That was
The
like,
audio.
that was like 2012 or 13.
But do you know
The original.
what the amount was?
No, because
I thought you-
Gary Carey did it. He,
But wasn't
Oh, did he? I thought you like negotiated with that.
oh no,
No.
I found it. No, he found somebody else that did that.
Oh, okay.
And it was only a couple $100 or $150. It wasn't a lot.
Really?
I was
I think
surprised
he-
how
I
little.
think he picked
45
it up.
pages?
I was surprised.
Yeah.
because-
Well, they're quick, they type quickly.
Okay, but, okay.
Anyway, whatever, he must have paid for it under.
Yeah, I mean, do we have to get real serious about that?
I'll have to look at what was.
Well, I mean, it's, I thought it was an expense that would have been
Okay.
reflected in our expenses. You
That
know.
was pretty.
And quite
Okay, but
honestly,
that's extraordinary.
according to the county treasurer, yes, that should be reflected in our expenses, but that's
I think Gary said he would accept it,
the way things go.
because it was
but-
still under John's office at that time. So I think he said because it was the county.
You know, whatever, but anyways.
Okay, well, let's not get.
All right, anyway, what should it
Well-
be next year? Let's
Yes.
move along to
Okay,
the salaries
why
and
don't we make
wages. Let's
that-
ask for an increase.
Why don't we make the travel $1,000?
I agree.
I agree.
Because I might want to go somewhere.
So over on that,
I don't know.
office supplies seem to be fine.
Yeah, but if we make that 1,000, and then the advertising, my question about that is, it is self-funding.
Yeah, I don't
So I
understand,
don't-
yeah, what?
But we still have to put an amount in, like I said, we still. for
I
budget
understand, but
purposes.
that's kind of fluid, because it's
How much
perfect.
of the fees cover the printing that goes, the fees that go to Rappahannock News?
So it's not 400 per application, is it? Or is it?
About
Yeah.
400, it's about $400
Oh,
for two advertisements, right?
I would say about 80%.
So, but it covers the advertising.
No,
The fee.
80%, only 80%.
No, 80%
so we
of,
make
Of the
20%.
80%
Well,
of
like
the
there's
fee.
staff time
covers.
and
That's cheap.
mailing and, yeah.
And you know, if you did advertise both the plan, I know we've been through this, but both the planning commission and the BZA at the same time, you don't want to do it.
No, because the planning commission may not act on that application, they may table it. It just gets you into a legal mess.
They should be separate.
But their first hearing is not advertised.
Right.
Correct.
And then they decide at that
But they
hearing.
can also table it, which then,
Theirs is not a true hearing.
But what I'm saying is, if they say we're hearing it, then it could be advertised for both. And then we can always not table it, but
Recess.
recess it. If we did that, we would save all kinds of money on advertising.
They-
If we were, no, seriously.
That's,
You don't pay taxes here, I can see that.
sometimes it pays off then to spend
No, but I'm
$2
just-
dollars to be legit.
If I have my way, the planning commission's not gonna have a lot of advertised public hearings.
But Michelle, you could cut
So I don't think we have to.
you'd cut the advertising in half.
No.
Yes, because you'd only advertise it once instead of twice. That's what I'm,
Right, exactly.
so why,
well, you still have to run, I mean, you can't
No,
say you
one-
advertise it once, because you have to run it twice.
well, you run it twice, but instead of
But it's-
running
but you
it
have to run it
twice,
twice.
I
Right, once for the
agree.
planning commission, once for the BZA.
And so if you run it and advertise both,
Typically, the planning commission does not hold hearings for such as tourist homes or family apartments that come to the BZA.
They haven't been,
No, they haven't.
okay, so then in that case, it's just advertised for us.
right,
But if they are electing to have a hearing,
don't worry about
don't
Talk to
worry
your
about it.
chairman.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking that if they are gonna advertise it, and then they extend it or whatever they do, then we could always table it or not. Because that's the way we used to do it. We kind of decide, okay, well, we're not gonna table it.
it. Well, you can start the public hearing on the advertised date and then recess it.
And I think we're close enough, the meetings are close enough that we can fit the advertising for both.
And
I think there's gonna be a meeting of the planning commission chairman and the BZA chairman and the board of supervisor chairman in the not too distant future, and we're gonna work all this out.
Yeah, because
Along
that's
with
a,
Mr. Curry and Ms. Summers.
yeah,
So we never will have to worry about
I think we
this.
need-
We're
I
in a
think we need
situation
to-
now where we have two people that can talk to each other and perhaps coordinate and just,
Who are they?
not me.
I think the 2020 budget was adopted for $3,000.
Don't talk to anybody.
and quite honestly, it's a budgeted amount, it's not an actual expenditure, so.
But the
and-
actual expenditure
And the
for,
savings in the perspective of the county budget is like a little pimple or something.
Well, no,
But it's
our
really,
budget-
you know, we,
You don't get moving.
it's good to say.
The board of
but it's
supervisors
really
spends
not
this much
noticeable
time
in the
as
whole
we're spending on 5 lines.
But we're not a
Never finished the
pimple, are
budget.
we?
the actual budget
When you
for,
think
for
about some of these expenditures.
No,
2016 was-
$3,000 out of 12 million or whatever, it's, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bradford.
yeah, the actual budget for 2019 was $2,600, and then what's been spent so far is $1,800, and that's just half of the year from July to December.
So
So
we
I think we're on target for the 3,000. I think you should leave the 3,000 in there and not talk about the,
But it doesn't matter, it's
We
just a
run out of
placeholder.
money, we'll just.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, well, so can we come to a consensus?
It's just like the legal services.
We're gonna
same
do
way, you know.
advertising at 3,000, is the legal services, do we have to have a figure in there?
We need
Sure,
something.
Yes,
put
we
there.
do.
We didn't,
Put
we
that
needed them, and then we
in.
didn't have them, so we never know.
So we have-
And what we did last, I mean, if we go over it, then it goes to the Board of Supervisors and they vote on taking it out of the general fund or whatever and paying it,
So
so.
not having any litigation coming up that we know of,
Well,
right?
we don't know.
That-
We don't know.
That we have to spend money on.
but there's times we need to
That's
have
what I put in,
legal
you know.
Yeah,
counsel.
like, we had that one case, we had to get counsel up here, so I don't, well, I remember.
So what would we put, a couple thousand?
Well, let's leave it at 5,000.
Well, I mean.
I think we stick with,
I think we stick with
I
5,000.
think the only increase we need is in to
Travel.
run the travel back up
To
from
1,000.
5 to 1,000, and that increases it to 12,750.
And why don't we increase the advertising somewhat? Because just, so it squares with what we're likely to have, maybe
The
30.
most important thing, nobody has proposed to increase, which is the salaries and
Salaries.
wages.
Well, then,
Come on. Who cares
That's-
about all this other stuff?
isn't that under health insurance?
Well, I think we said we were gonna do it next year, a couple of years in a row.
Well, see, and nothing's been paid out yet. Okay.
That's because they only pay in June, they only pay at the very end of the year, you get
Yeah.
one check.
Okay.
So,
So is
so
legal?
let's raise that up to like 10,000 and see if they know.
Yeah,
Okay, 3,600 is okay for that. Okay, how about 36?
And bump the zoning administrator also?
We'll give her a thing for coming to the meeting.
Well, why not raise the advertising a little bit, just make that 10,000 or 3,600? And then legal services, you really want to do 5,000?
yes.
Yeah,
Do we need that?
we, you know,
Yes.
Until you get the end of the year.
I mean, if it doesn't get spent, it goes, at the
Back
end
to
of the
the-
year,
Okay.
To the general
turns around,
fund.
goes back into the general fund. and
Goes like the
goes
lawyers-
on,
the
but at
lawyers
least
on the
we have
board
it in
get
our
this
budget.
to-
Okay, and office supplies, can we say 200?
Yeah, let's go for 200.
200. And then travel, can we say 1,000?
Yes, that's what
Well,
we said.
it's travel and training.
Okay, let's say 1,200, is that all right?
Yes.
Because that would be 2 Rons.
Yeah, that would actually work out if there were a couple of people who needed to go to something.
Okay.
Or, you know, there's stuff out there that's available, but, you know,
What about the
getting
wages?
educated is not a bad thing when you're doing this kind
How
of
much are
work.
we gonna pay at a meeting?
I think it's
$35?
50 now. What,
Is it
didn't we
50?
raise it?
We raised it, but I don't know if they ever adopted it. Do you know?
I think they did raise it to 50.
There's 5 people divided into 3,800. What does that come out?
That-
$30 per meeting,
How much?
30.
30.
I thought we raised it last year.
I think we requested it.
Oh, we requested it.
Well,
Okay.
good, let's request it to $50. We're worth it.
And how many do we have about, what?
I think it
8
ought
or
to
9
be minimum
meetings?
wage, minimum wage.
Well, that would be a lot more than 50.
Do we have 9 meetings in a year?
10, I would say.
10?
This year we did, we
So
only
that would be
canceled maybe one.
250, so, see, that's only 2,500.
What?
50, oh, and then we've got your salary.
Is
And,
that in the same line?
That's probably in the same line.
and in all fairness, because, I mean, I don't understand who came up with these figures or whatever, but wages and salaries for us are listed at $3,800 right now.
Yeah.
But the planning commission, which has the same number of members,
No, it
Yes.
has,
well, it depends on how you pay the other two.
No, they get
salary
paid, yeah, they get paid separate for that.
it's 7 members.
So it's 7, yeah.
But the total amount for 5 members on the Board of Zoning Appeals is $3,800. The total amount then for 7 members on the planning commission is $2,400.
Well, one reason is I think they only get $20, right?
Well, we also pay our
And
secretary,
the secretary gets
gets
paid.
paid,
I get
on the
paid here,
BTA.
and that's in that line, and then.
Are you getting 150 per meeting?
yes.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying, it's,
Another
you know,
one.
that's something for the county to deal with, but
Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
we
you
could
know,
raise that.
there shouldn't be that discrepancy
But now,
between.
is this meeting not an example that maybe we're actually intending to have 12 meetings a year?
It's,
Because
I think we had 12 this year, didn't we? Or this past year?
I think we skipped 1 or 2 months.
One, maybe.
One.
I'm not sure which one, maybe last February or something, I'm not sure. No, one February. I don't think we skipped any meetings.
I didn't think we did.
Okay, well,
So I need the money.
okay, so, but we're leaning towards
It's really
having,
big money.
we're leaning towards having 12 meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's 1,800 for your work.
Right, that's what,
And-
that's where Help got the 3,800
Oh, I
and
see.
2,000 for the rest of everybody. Which is $30 per
Okay, well,
meeting.
should we have 3,800 for salary?
Make it 4,000. I think it'll make it 10,000.
Fine, okay, I'll make it 4,000.
And-
Advertising,
Took
3,600.
the bargain. Why don't you split the split in the middle and say it's 6 and then you could have gone to 5?
Oh, is it, that doesn't really matter. Okay,
What about
But there,
health
yeah,
insurance?
and on the salaries, and the fact that, I mean, we all work hard to do this stuff. And to raise it a little bit or whatever in perspective with the total amount of the budget, I mean, you really can't find that amount in there. It's so insignificant to the total budget, but for us, yeah, it's a little bit more money. You know, we work hard and we deserve it. Same thing with the planning commission.
but
So-
what happened, we requested a raise last year, but I don't know if
It
you
was a
got it.
couple of years ago, I don't know. I
I'll
remember
say, we can
I
request.
remember when Debbie Kaiser was here,
and-
it was in 2016, I think, but we were way late with our request.
Okay, so what if we were $50 a meeting for 12 meetings, that's 300, that's 3,600, right?
I can't.
I mean, oh, 250 per meeting,
Yes.
3,000 for 12, plus the
So
1,800.
that's 48, so it's
4,800,
5,000.
So 5,000.
Go ahead.
So last year, it was requested for the BZA to be paid $30 per meeting, which at 5 members, 12 months, 1,800, and then $150 per meeting for the secretary in addition. Advertising was requested at $5,000, office supplies at $150, travel at $500, and legal at $5,000.
I mean,
That's what the board requested last year.
that's what we requested.
Yes.
Okay.
And we got a lot of that.
Well, can we just, is this adequate, what we just talked about?
Yes.
We don't have to fight with this all
I'm
out.
not gonna do it.
So salary, who's gonna write this down?
Secretary.
Secretary.
What?
Okay.
That's why we pay the extra money.
Wages.
Just listen to the video.
Wages and salaries dash
Yeah,
members,
just don't know to what?
5,000.
All right,
Advertising, $3,600.
all right,
Legal, 5,000.
right.
Office supplies, 200. And travel, 1,200.
Yeah, I really believe that that's,
Yeah, and there's also which I don't even know what it is dues and memberships or whatever, and there
I
are
don't
any
know
members
what
of anything
members
that we
are.
pay dues for?
But, I mean, no.
Oh, yeah,
Why don't you form a
it's not
Okay.
there, and then-
Is there,
advocate for higher wages?
is there a motion,
That's our union wage, right?
is there a motion to,
That'd
The
be good for you.
BZA union.
I move that the figures that were just read, the 5,000,
yeah, you don't
So,
have to recycle.
be adopted as the budget to be submitted to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the next item, now that I have the last minutes, I will have a draft for your review. I'll try to have it a week at least before the meeting, for next meeting.
All right.
Yeah. And I mean, but honestly, I was looking at like last year's or whatever, and basically you can just
Yeah,
sort of take that as
yeah.
boilerplate and
Yeah.
just sort of change things around.
Or make a little spreadsheet and I, you know, because there's a certain number that may be withdrawn, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this last one is sort of a catch-all. I didn't know if anybody had anything else to discuss that was on your mind.
What's on the agenda?
It's other matters relating to the business of the BZA.
That would be housekeeping.
I
It would
thought you
be-
wanted to talk
But
about
what,
forms.
what happened to
That's
the,
housekeeping.
did we get a copy of the letter we were gonna send to the Board of
That
Supervisors?
was, that's also, I got that on here also, that letter that Alex was, Alex, the letter you want to read out
I
again?
haven't done it.
Ah,
I need
Too
to
busy writing the annual.
yeah, you were writing again, it was short.
I need to be reminded. Okay, I'll draft it again.
Okay, so we got that taken care
Have
of.
you sent him the Word version of what you did?
Probably.
I actually had printed them out. and got a copy.
Yeah, but I'm gonna send him the Word
Yeah,
version.
send me the
Oh,
Word
We're gonna have to
version.
retype.
Okay, yeah, I think
I was waiting.
That's why he didn't do
I
it.
learned how to do that recently, so.
I was waiting by my computer the whole month.
Okay.
See,
Acceptable.
that's why
Responsibility.
I have sores on my, yeah. Okay, is there any other, I guess that's it, right?
Well, no, I had, that was what I brought up at the last meeting as far as there are some things that we need to look at. Having taken the course, which, of course, whenever you take the course, that gives you information that drives everybody else crazy. But anyhow, I mean, our forms, the forms that people file and whatever,
You mean to make
Application.
application?
our application forms need to be looked at. They're not user-friendly. I know the variance form, I mean, I read it, and it's like, you read the whole thing, and it's like, you read it all, but you really don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And also, particularly in the area of the variances, it really doesn't supply a well-thought-out,
What?
and this is not a
Do you have something to say?
I've already revamped all applications that the county has. Me and Mr. Curry are in the
And you're in
works.
process of,
That is one of them.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I
So we
mean.
just need to review them and,
So are you gonna let us see him?
No,
So do you have copies,
whatever.
we could review them at the next meeting?
yeah.
And remember to put that on the agenda.
You're the
Done.
agenda.
That's something else we need to talk about.
So that's it.
Yeah, we also need to talk about our meeting cancellation policy.
No,
It's not in the rules.
I'm suitably chastened. Okay.
You are?
I'm suitably chastened.
Well, for what?
The miscommunication about the meeting, it was all on me. So, we're okay.
No, but,
No, it
I
is
mean,
all-
Alex, we need to have sort of a serious discussion on this because I mean, particularly in this case, there is some misunderstanding between the board and administration. Administration has certain expectations that we
And
aren't.
timelines.
That we aren't necessarily meeting. So we need to hash that out, and that Michelle is more than happy to print these things for us and take care of that.
You mean
But
to
she
enter it
shouldn't,
into board
she should
docs.
not be in the position of being the mother that says, I need the form, I need the agenda, or whatever.
Please, please, pretty please,
We have to
I'm
take that
begging you.
responsibility on ourselves, and put a time frame on it or whatever. And so it's there, and we give it to Michelle, and then she does
Are
it.
you including me in the we part?
I'm including everybody on the board.
The all
wherever we
fingers
decide
are
to do it.
pointing
Okay.
to you. You
Okay.
should be the initiator.
Okay,
but
well, I will accept the we designation.
It's, but how are, as far as the board goes.
Means Alex, it doesn't mean any of us.
Well, as vice chair, then you should give him the tickler that says,
Oh, that's true.
the
That's
reminder,
true.
it's time for the agenda, get it out.
Well, that, or,
I'm the
it
secretary, so
should
I'll remind
be,
you.
it should be
Well,
a
maybe,
week in advance that you put out the notice that you need to put the agenda together. If anybody has any recommendations, let me have them by such a date, and then you do that. But it has to be a more formal process than what we've been doing because it hasn't been working and it gets us in trouble.
well, it only got me into trouble this time.
Well, no,
I
the
would
whole
say
board,
that.
you were born and,
Okay, well, I absorbed all the
So it's,
I hope so. Luckily, Michelle wasn't here because it was Lee Jackson Day, so she missed.
and then the first day of the
Missed
week
getting
was
in
done.
trouble.
Yeah,
Anyway.
okay, I accept your,
yeah, well, and like I said, let the
Yeah.
board members know well in advance so that they can chime in and then it gives you plenty of time to put it together and you get it to her and it goes out and,
We can provide you all your own username and login board
yeah.
docs so you can
Well,
do
no,
your own
let's not
agenda.
get drastic about it.
It was offered.
No, I know, it was awful.
yes.
Let us test out our new
plan.
thing, our new-
Okay, now, and the second thing I found out as the FOIA officer is that, well, first off, it took me a while to find the minutes because I didn't know where they were, and I thought, well, the supervisor's minutes and the plan commission minutes are at the clerk's office, so I'll go over and see Peggy. Well, no, Peggy didn't have them, so I went and saw Michelle, and no, Michelle didn't have them, but it turns out that our minutes are kept in the county administrator's office at this point, although I believe in somewhere in the documentation or whatever it states that they're supposed to be in the zoning administrator's office. And I think what actually has happened is that when everything moved, because John McCarthy used to be the zoning administrator, that...
Well, he was both. He was both.
Yes, but that's
Okay.
why those minutes ended up
Okay.
being in his office, but then when it was separated out, we're suddenly, basically, we're in violation of our own procedures, and that they
What's
aren't,
the penalty for that?
you go to...
Well, should
You
we
go to FOIA jail.
should we change that and just say that it will be kept at
Well,
the?
for whatever.
No, I think we need to, the other thing is, I went and looked at the minutes yesterday, and they're up to August of this year, so have you been taking them over there and putting them in the book, or how have they been getting
I've
it?
never seen the book. Okay, that's not true.
Okay,
I saw the book, the
you-
last time that I saw the book was in February of
Well,
1985.
Michelle,
Once I get the appropriate signatures, I send them over to be placed in the book, yes.
Okay.
that's what you had, Juan.
Okay, but the
Did you get-
book itself, I mean, it's a bunch of little, folders, or there's like 5 of them now, I think. But they originally started out, which is not a bad idea, in that, number one, as they go in, they get a page number, so if you're looking for a page number, but then in the front of each binder, there's an index for that binder that indicates alphabetically what's in there. So if you're looking for the SUP for so-and-so, you can look in the, it's an index, it tells you what page
Well, that's pretty good.
that information is on, which is the way it should be, but that stopped a couple of years ago. And for the public, particularly for the public information aspect, needs to be continued. And it wouldn't be a huge
All right,
effort.
I'll undertake to work on that with Michelle. Or
Well,
Karen, or whoever.
it's-
Can they be put in a digital form?
What?
Can they not be put in a digital form?
I think under the Public Records Act.
You have to have
They
hard
still,
copy.
have to
yeah,
have a
apparently
hard
they still
copy
have to
of
be,
Well, no, I understand.
Not only that, you have to have them in a place that is fireproof, like the clerk's office, which is why all the other ones are over there.
which we know is fireproof.
Well, how about a
So
digital?
it's got the Niagara.
No, the back room there is,
Is it?
But a digital?
no, it's all concrete and it's got that vault door, they close that every night because they
But
have
a digital copy would also be nice, right?
Oh, no, I mean,
You know, they
a lot
have
of
it
it,
on board docs somewhere?
yeah, a lot of it is on
Is
board
there a
docs.
list of the minutes in there?
Well,
Like
you-
just,
You can
no,
fill in Word
not
docs.
going back to each meeting, but I'm saying like a library of the minutes.
Yeah.
But they're by month, but they're not by subject.
Right,
No,
right, they're by month.
But I mean, I don't think.
But it only goes back on ours, I think, to like maybe 2015.
I don't
or-
have time to index them, let me just say that.
No. That's what I
What do
mean,
you
but
do with your
they're,
time?
they're on board, there's a very limited number of recent ones are on board docs.
Well, probably Candy Roth is the one who did, who indexed them.
What?
Candy Roth, the,
Stop wasting time coming to the.
Yeah, basically, yeah, she started the indexing and.
You could be over there
that sort of-
indexing.
And so it stopped when she left.
But, like I said, that, and it's not a huge deal, I mean, it's just a matter of when.
So
Sounds like a FOIA officer volunteering.
are we going to
Yeah,
keep them
space
at the
over.
clerk's office? We can change that?
We would, if we are going to, if we are going to move them, we're going to have to change wherever in all
Well, I think
the
we could do that.
ordinances or whatever, that it
It's not
says
in
where they are.
It's in our
And right now it
procedure.
says they are kept at the zoning administrator's office,
So, Ron-
and they're not.
Ron, it's in our procedure, so we could change that.
Well, yeah, absolutely, but we need to do that.
Well, we need to have an idea of where we would want to keep it.
The problem, and it came up today, because we have a third FOIA request from the Hendricksons, which, by the way, if you had any communications, which I don't think anybody has since the last one, which was not that long ago, but he stated today that the reason he was asking for those was that it was inconvenient, because he thought they were in the zoning administrator's office, but there is no area in that office for someone to take those and go and look at them, because, I mean, if they're in your office, it's constricting for what you do, because at times you're doing things that are confidential or whatever, and you can't have somebody over in the corner listening to what you're doing if you're talking to somebody or whatever. So they have to be in an area that allows a person to come in and look at
Well, the
them.
clerk's office.
Well, the clerk's office,
The clerk's office would be, if and I think Peggy's got space there. It's not, what we're looking at right now is like that much space for these volumes that are over in Gary's
On the
office.
back shelf.
So, but,
You throw them on top of the filing cabinet.
but to, move them over there, and also what
Come
that
up with a comp
does.
plan that says, do not remove from clerk's office.
Well, they can't, I mean, she won't let anybody take anything out of there.
If he sees them, that's right. But there's a lot of stuff that used to be on that shelf that also said, do not remove from clerk's office. And it's not there anymore.
Okay, well,
What did you do with it, David?
I didn't,
okay,
I knew it was there and went to look for it.
so
and
should
now
we
it's
put
gone.
on the agenda next month that we'll modify or make a decision about where we're keeping the?
Yeah, I think that
Why
would
don't
be
you look at
appropriate.
it, you talk to Peggy about it, or if you want me to, I'll.
I don't, I think she will do whatever she has to do, and like I said, it's not a huge space thing, and actually where they keep them right now, there's actually space in there. I mean, it's
So-
not,
because Michelle has access to them right now because they're digital. So if she needed to look at something, you wouldn't go to the hard copy, you would go to the digital.
If
Oh,
Oh,
they
this
have
is
like
for-
18 and 19 digital.
yeah,
So
I have the other ones.
where are the actual permits go?
In the file.
the permits are all in your
In
office.
my office.
In your office, so there's a file for each year with the permits in
There's
sequential
all the
order?
files with the
Or have
permit applications and the last.
No, I understand, but a permit has a number like,
Right, and they're filed by those numbers.
so it's in that sequence.
And we have an
And
index
that's, and that was
Okay.
And how far back does that go then?
all the way.
All the way to.
Forever.
what?
1963.
back to when George was here surveying.
Probably, yeah.
No, we didn't have zoning, no, seriously.
No, it's
It was
the
indexed.
six.
When we had it, when I was there, it wasn't indexed. They were in the gray filing cabinet, and everybody said, what gray filing cabinet? And it's over at Gary Perry's office, because I saw it and recognized it, but there's different stuff in it now.
All those files got transferred down to my office.
Okay.
I have,
You have like the BZ, the special use permits all the way back to say 60 something.
63 or whatever.
I believe it goes back.
And, okay, and that's,
Yeah,
Are they kept separate from the special exception permits?
the special use, special exception,
Well,
rezonings,
there weren't any special exceptions.
variances,
until after
appeals, all
86.
those are, they're all just filed together. But
Okay, but in-
there's a numerical system to it.
They're in chronological order for when they were filed, or when they were, okay, fine.
Applied.
Okay.
and that goes down my list here, and that was my next concern, is that those are the only records, and if they go away, what happens? In that, I mean, we're talking about the clerk's office,
What
and that
happens-
stuff being in a fireproof
We
place
start
or whatever,
over.
but these are records that, I mean, if that is, and for the most part, that is truly the only record that exists, is what's in those filing cabinets, and if there's a fire and it all burns up, what happens? I mean, we have to,
If they all have to come and reapply, it's gonna be a busy month.
I mean,
Well, isn't there a digitalization?
no,
No, wait,
No.
I'm asking if there's a procedure for digitizing these things. We're not the first ones to do it.
Oh, I'm sure there is, yeah.
oh, you're it, there
Am
you
I
go.
You're
put
gonna
money
pay a
in for
chunk of
that?
change, to have that, and you're gonna pay quite the chunk of change to have that done.
Like how much do you?
Well, can you scan them in?
Well, that's what he's.
Well, no, but
Well,
somebody needs to scan them in, and I'm sure there's some software to do it in this
But
thing.
it has to be, the point being that, I mean, we're in the year 2020 and the technology is available to back these records up or whatever, and we have to back them up. We
No,
can't
I-
just sit there and go, oh, it's, you know, they're okay or whatever, and that, no, they're not. I mean, it's.
Well, I would agree with you to the extent that it should be done, and, I mean, obviously, you're not gonna do it, and I'm not gonna do it.
Well,
No,
do we
it's-
need to
it's-
amend
Budget?
the budget to have some
Yeah,
extra
100,000.
clerical work, someone to do this extra work in order to find the right kind of software and then scan and digitalize them?
We, you know, I think
Why don't we
be
look-
responsible,
Why don't
yes.
we look into that?
Well, I think to just basically throw it out at this point because we are going into the budget process.
Then we may need to revise
you
this
know,
budget.
just
Well, I mean, I don't
to
think
get
we're
it on the plate
responsible for
as far as, certainly it needs to be looked at.
Well, someone's gotta look at it and have extra clerical work for, it's technical work, it's not the work of the BZA secretary. I got you off on that
So
one.
Well,
should we add
and-
$1,000?
You know, are they
Would that be
considered
a
as,
reasonable
are they
idea?
considered as
A
BZA
thousand?
records or
That's a
county
way
Well,
more
records?
that would, I mean, you're talking weeks of work,
Oh,
probably.
it's a long process and you have to, you know,
We have
start
a
it.
potential comment from.
May I say something? As
Sure.
a former librarian and worked in a collection that had archives, Fairfax did a lot of digitizing of its court records, of course, and they have a county archives of government papers. And I don't know how much got digitized there, but I know the people who know the people that run these things. So it might be worthwhile to talk to some other places
Mhm.
and
And
say,
see
what
like-
have you done?
Like the
And I
health
don't know if you
department.
need to go as big as Fairfax, but to say, what have you done to protect things? There's also, there's archival things to put things in. These papers grow old and they get gray, and gosh knows if there's some that was done on thermofax or
Oh my
something
God.
like that. Yes, God help us if it is. But that's the other thing you have to worry about is what you do with it. And some of it is just put it in archival boxes, so it'll be better protected.
Like
or-
sealed boxes.
Well, there's special archival boxes
Yeah.
that,
non-acidic.
non-acidic, and there's people that do this for a living, which is not fun or cheap. But I think yes, it's probably a good time to think about all the paperwork, but yours in particular, it might be a small thing to start off and try to figure out.
Because if
How do
we
you deal with
do
it?
like on average 7 or 8 permits a year, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah, so they,
And it's 35 years, so that'd be.
No,
three-
if it goes back to 65, that's.
Per year, I'm saying. So it might be 300 or 400 or 500 at the most.
Files?
So what would a file, I don't know. what-
Yeah.
Yeah, and some files may be this thick and some of them may be like this.
Well-
But you're talking about files or the actual, just the paper permit itself?
Paperwork.
Well, I mean, certainly you want to save the permit. Yeah, I would say
But
both.
you'd want to save the paperwork for the legal
Well,
point
if
of
you can,
view, so yeah.
Yeah,
Well, a
but
lot of stuff that's in some of those files, I think, is like correspondence and stuff that is not really critical.
would not be needed unless
No,
it was
no,
within a
it's-
few years.
what is,
And I mean, I have started, since I've been secretary, as everyone's noticed, I'm sure, to put on the backside of the minutes all the vote sheets and the
Agenda.
agenda and all that important stuff. I don't have the permit there after it's issued, because we really don't do that, the zoning administrator does, but,
Yeah.
that helped, but I mean, in some of those files, like a lot of letters, or letters that the neighbors wrote, or all that stuff, why spend money to preserve all that?
Yeah, I agree.
It's irrelevant.
But there's.
Should only be pretty much the basic
Well,
stuff, the application and the plat and the site plan,
Ron, if
and that's
there
it.
was 7 or 8 pages per document, and you're talking, I mean,
Per
I'm
file.
just- per file, and you're talking about 400 files,
Yeah,
that's 2,800 pages. I don't know how much that costs, but,
no, but.
I mean, it's
you know,
not,
that's-
it's not gonna break the bank necessarily.
And
I'll
like I
still
said-
argue from my archival background, the little that I have in library world, you try to save everything, because God knows if you may need it. And we're just sitting here talking about if you've got 25 neighbors that argued against something at some time or another, and somebody had a good argument of some sort, you're gonna miss that when you're going back through the paperwork.
Yeah, but
you
if
need
it
to.
happened in like 1972, who cares?
You'd be surprised.
You might wanna
And just the
legally-
fact that somebody's
Legally
there, I go
or
back to my
just-
genealogy
No, they-
stuff. I
Why
can't
would
stand
it
who's
make a
there.
difference for what? Because the
Some of
permit,
it would be good.
the permit's granted or not granted, and the time for appealing it is expired a long time ago.
I'll just
some-
say you need to look at it real.
I'll tell you another thing, there is one case, it's actually Doug Baumgartner's case from, I think I've talked about it before, about a billboard up in Front Royal, and they claimed that it was a non-conforming use. And so, the county, or, which I think was Warren County, or might have been the town of Front Royal, I think it was town of Front Royal, had lost or misplaced the paperwork for it. They didn't have their file on it.
And
It
it's
was
up
like
to-
14 or 20 years ago.
It's up
and-
to the person to
And
prove
the,
it, right?
exactly, the Supreme Court said, and the Circuit Court, and it was affirmed, said, it's up to the applicant. If they're trying to prove that they had a permit, or they were a grandfathered use, and that it was legal at the time, it's their burden to prove that they had a lawful use. It's not the burden of the county to come up with the paperwork, so I would say, but you're gonna need to, somebody's gonna have to supervise whoever it is, and Michelle didn't have time to do that.
Or is it
To
like?
say, these are the documents for each file that you need to microfilm or put on, I don't know, or else either that or do everything.
Microfilm?
Well, whatever it's called.
I mean,
Actually, microfilm has stood the test of time, strangely enough.
It is,
Yeah, that's-
so it
It
is.
has.
Okay.
Its problem is not having color. That's the big problem. If you mark something up with
Okay.
different colors for different reasons, which I don't think we do here, but I do know that some bodies in
Yeah,
town
it
have
doesn't
done that
come
way.
up.
But it's actually holds up awfully well, but because we don't know, some of these digitizing methods are gonna, if the equipment's gonna be around to run this stuff.
But you could make
Just-
PDF
Why
files.
don't you write a letter to the county administrator and see what he
Well,
recommends?
and it's not just us, there are other county records
But you know,
also,
it-
but it's
it-
just something that.
So if you really
Yes.
broke it down and you had someone for the summer who was paid 15
Yes,
an hour,
an intern.
an
I mean,
intern.
I'm not looking,
And, no, I'm serious, you
Yeah.
paid them 15 an hour and they could probably do all the special
Is
exceptions.
that more than what we get from when we come to him?
Yeah.
Probably, but, or
It's
maybe,
more than what I get.
maybe we could bring it to this meeting and we could just work on that and get a raise.
Oh, I'll give it to the planning commission.
Yeah.
You give it to the planning commission, give them 3 more members and
I'll see how they
a
feel.
stack of folders to work on. Okay.
okay, and one more.
It's 8 o'clock, we're missing the.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Thank you, impeached.
The record decision documents, whatever. Number one, and I think I've run into it at times, I don't know if anybody else has, particularly going back, when you look at one of these things, particularly that John McCarthy filled out, where under the conditions or whatever, I mean, there are scribbles, but you can't really discern what's there. That's part of the problem, but also.
What do you mean,
we-
what's there?
Under conditions.
Read the writing.
Oh, you can't
No
read
offense,
the- what is
there's,
Well, he didn't write it, did he?
yeah, that's what it is. And it's, like I
Can't
said,
read
it's,
You better
it's,
be nice to me and not let anything happen to me.
I can read it.
but it's, like I said, there again, it's something that,
You're talking about legibility.
Well,
Calligraphy.
The alternative to that is, I'll tell you
They
what my problem is, that when I have to write it down at the meeting, while I'm at the meeting, it's very difficult.
That's easy to read.
See, thank you.
what?
And it's hard to do at
Because
the
you can
meeting,
He's
Most
fine.
people can.
and whatever, especially when I'm talking.
But do you?
Oh, I know, I
Can't
agree
chew
with that,
gum
but
and
just,
write at the same time, but anyway, so then, if you wanna do it another way, we could, sort of, do that sheet later and sign it at the next meeting when we approve the minutes, but then when you have an appeal, then you don't have the vote sheet, so we could do it.
I think that's fine. We
well,
can-
and
I'll try
but
to
the other
write
thing also
more neatly.
is the vote sheet, because planning commission, because you'll have to do two of these now.
I don't have to do that.
The-
So I got somebody else to do.
Ours is strictly basically yay, nay, or whatever, and a signature, and we aren't saying, we don't in the minutes tend to say who made the motion, who seconded the motion,
Doesn't matter.
which is, it's,
But we put
It's
it on
nice to
there, we
know.
put it on there.
no, this is the planning commission's. Ours doesn't have that, that's what I'm saying, is
How long
that
is
perhaps
it?
we, to go to this,
Well, we could just change it.
just
But you could
very
just put a
simply, I
one
mean, it's just,
next to
it's,
this
it's
person.
I don't
not,
have that.
it's not a major issue, but just to utilize the
Okay.
record of decision format that is used by the planning commission.
Well, I got Michelle can send me the form and I'll put it
Yeah,
on.
So is that your last item?
that's it.
Oh, very good. Okay, well, that's been very helpful.
It's,
Is this yours or mine?
Yeah.
it's ours.
Ours.
It's on
Or
board
are you
docs.
using
You
the
want one, go to
collective?
board docs.
He's using the collective we.
And that's the other thing that as the FOIA officer, and I'm getting information from the FOIA council, but we've had a number of FOIA requests. You were the FOIA officer, did you ever have a FOIA request?
One, I did one.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe it was a mistake to make you the FOIA officer.
No, it's actually a good idea.
Go back to him, we didn't have any then. They were too intimidating.
Anyways, there are things being FOIA'd that are publicly available information, and as a FOIA officer, my response is that, no, I'm not going to go and look all this stuff up for you and make copies of it and send it to you. You can go and look up the minutes of the meeting and whatever, and no, that is
I don't know
not,
if that
that's
even
not a
do-
valid FOIA request.
I don't know that it is.
For, you can't, normally when you're FOIA things, you're looking for the most part, like emails, inside communications or whatever that are public knowledge, but they're not publicly available, like the meetings for the minutes.
The minutes for the
And whatever. So if somebody asks you for they want the meetings for the minutes for the last 12 months.
Do we have meetings for minutes?
Yeah.
You know what he meant.
Yeah.
Because I think it goes for hours, actually.
Anyway,
Yes,
so, but
Minutes,
our,
yes, I got that.
but the minutes should be on the,
They're on board docs, they're
Board docs.
available in, an office or whatever, and they should, they shouldn't be something the FOIA officer, particularly when you're an unpaid FOIA officer, has to bother with, so you can just merely say that information is available,
here,
publicly at this location, and that's all you say, and that's what I'm gonna start doing.
Can
Until they
you
say- until
legally
they
do
say-
that?
I'm finding that out from the FOIA council, that's where and
Okay.
I believe that
Well, assuming that you can, then that's fine.
Yeah, because what happens is that, basically somebody could be writing a book for profit or whatever.
You could be
And
writing it for them.
rather than them having to sit down and do all the research, they just merely FOIA all these people and everybody else does the research for them and they write the book and make all the money. And the taxpayers pay for the research. And no, that's not
Well, the
right.
FOIA people, the requesters pay for it too.
Yeah, we can charge for the FOIA request. So you could have, okay,
Yes.
we could have a charge for looking up something publicly available.
And that's another point. Okay, if I'm looking it up, my going rate for my business is $40 an hour. So if it takes me an hour, do I get to charge that person
But-
$40
but there are-
myself?
I think that down in the
We'll pay
city,
him 15.
down in the
charge
city,
for
they say if you're asking for whatever, there's a flat $400 charge for them, for someone who's got a FOIA request.
You have to, it has to be reasonable, it has to be based
Yeah, it has
on
to,
time.
It has to be reasonable.
So you would
And then-
provide them
And
with
it can't
estimate?
be, I think it specifically says there, you can't make money on it, it has to be based on the actual cost of
Correct.
doing
Right.
it, the research time and the copying.
But of course,
So-
what actual cost? If you're doing it, what is the actual cost?
That's
Well,
what
fair
our
too.
FOIA office.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's find that and report back.
Yes, okay, yes, I'm just saying, like I said, this is sort of a housekeeping meeting and whatever. and
Anything else?
It's only 5 minutes after, you go
No,
home,
but
watch the-
what have we done?
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
All right.